Hello everyone, welcome to my channel SW Metro official channel.
Sister wife's final verdict shock, hidden wife and secret child exposed in court. The courtroom in Flagstaff had never seen anything like it, and fans who had followed the Brown family saga for more than a decade could hardly believe what was unfolding before their eyes, because for years the narrative had centered around the crumbling of the plural marriage, the divorce announcements, the land drama over Coyote Pass, and the bitter fights between Kody Brown and his wives Christine, Janelle, Mary, and Robin, but no one, absolutely no one, was prepared for the revelation that emerged in sworn testimony, that Kody Brown, the man who had long preached about transparency, unity, and the principles of plural marriage, allegedly had a hidden fifth wife and a secret child that he never publicly acknowledged, and the fact that this was exposed during legal proceedings related to the family's finances, property disputes, and divorce settlements sent shockwaves through the sister wives universe, leaving both the fans and the family members grappling with a betrayal deeper than any seen before, because while viewers had watched years of dysfunction, arguments, favoritism, and jealousy, the image that Kody had always projected was that he was still trying, still dedicated, still open about the struggles of polygamy, but this revelation painted a picture of deception that was far more calculated than anyone suspected. And it all began when court documents unsealed during the Coyote Pass property redistribution hearings contained references to financial support. Payments that could not be traced back to Robin's children, Janelle's kids, Christine's brood, or Mary's only child Leon, leading the attorneys to press Kody under oath about who exactly was receiving these funds, and as the questioning deepened, names were dropped, timelines were sketched, and suddenly the court erupted when it was revealed that there was another woman, whose identity had been kept in the shadows for years, who had been legally connected to Kody in what appeared to be a private spiritual union and who had given birth to a child that Kody had been supporting financially but never mentioned on the show, to his family, or to the public, and the gasp from the courtroom echoed like thunder across reality television history, because this was the kind of secret that could not just be brushed off as misunderstanding or exaggeration. This was the kind of revelation that fundamentally shattered the narrative that had been sold to TLC audiences for over a decade, and the reactions of the sister wives themselves became the stuff of legend, with Christine reportedly shaking her head in both fury and vindication, saying this only proved why she left, Janelle looking visibly stunned as she muttered about betrayal and hypocrisy, Mary falling into an eerie silence as if she had finally received confirmation of the emotional abandonment she had always spoken about, and even Robin, the so-called favorite wife, looking horrified because she realized that she too had been misled, that Kody's loyalty to her was not the exclusive devotion he had promised, and in that single moment the carefully constructed world of the Brown family collapsed, not just in the court of law but in the court of public opinion, because if Kody could hide a wife and a child, then what else had he been hiding all these years? What other parts of the sister wives saga had been concealed behind carefully edited storylines? And fans took to social media in droves, expressing everything from rage to heartbreak to a perverse sense of satisfaction that the truth had finally come out, and in the days that followed, analysts and insiders began piecing together how this hidden chapter of Kody's life could have existed for so long without detection, speculating that perhaps the woman had been introduced to him during a time when he was traveling for business opportunities connected to the show, or that the spiritual marriage had taken place quietly with only a handful of witnesses sworn to secrecy, and that the child had been raised away from the spotlight deliberately to avoid the media circus that inevitably follows the Brown family. But the question remained, why now? Why did it come out in court, and what would the consequences be for Kody, his wives, and his reputation as the patriarch of the most famous polygamist family in America? And as reporters dug deeper, it was revealed that the payments surfaced due to financial audits linked to the $1.5 million Coyote Pass sale, which forced Kody to disclose every outgoing expense, and in doing so the existence of this other family member could no longer be denied, sparking debates about fraud, trust violations, and the potential collapse of any remaining sister wives spin-off projects. Yet at the heart of all the legal jargon and sensational headlines was the human drama of betrayal, of children realizing their father had devoted resources to a secret sibling while often claiming poverty when it came to paying for their college or supporting their mother's independent pursuits, of women who had invested decades of loyalty, sacrifice, and heartbreak suddenly realizing that they weren't just competing with each other but with a phantom wife they never even knew existed, and the emotional fallout was staggering, with reports claiming that some of the Brown kids felt completely alienated from their father after learning the truth, saying it proved he never valued them the way he claimed, while others expressed confusion, anger, and even pity for the secret child who had grown up hidden from the world, bearing the weight of Kody's duplicity, and all of this culminated in the court's final verdict, which not only divided property and financial obligations but also forced Kody to acknowledge his responsibilities toward this hidden child in a legal, public way, stripping away the secrecy he had clung to for years, and while some Sister Wives fans expressed sympathy for the innocent child caught up in this scandal, most directed their fury at Kody, declaring this the ultimate proof that his downfall was of his own making, and as the dust settled, one thing became clear: the Sister Wives saga would never be the same, because this revelation was bigger than Coyote Pass, bigger than divorces, bigger than jealousy. It was a final verdict shock that exposed the deepest deception of all, leaving fans to wonder not only about the fate of the Browns but also about the morality of the man at the center of it all, whose legacy would forever be tainted by the scandal of a hidden wife and a secret child finally dragged into the light of truth. Kody Brown, patriarch, pioneer, and perennial victim of societal misunderstanding, lay in absolute ruins, not just fractured by the departures of 3 of his 4 wives, but utterly obliterated by a revelation so profound it recontextualized every argument, every tear, and every moment of the entire legal proceeding. This was not a verdict, it was an exhumation. The so-called Sister Wives' final verdict shock was not about the court's decision on the narrow legalities of their suit, but rather the court of public opinion and personal betrayal delivering a life sentence of disgrace upon Kody, as a hidden wife and a secret child were exposed in the most dramatic fashion imaginable. The day had begun with an air of somber finality. The case, which had initially challenged Utah's anti-polygamy laws on constitutional grounds only to be largely dismissed and then appealed on narrower tenets, was finally reaching its conclusion. Kody, seated with Robin, his last loyal wife, wore the weary expression of a man who believed he was about to be vindicated as a martyr for his faith, even in a partial legal loss. His other wives, the long-suffering Mary, the pragmatic Janelle, and the liberated Christine, were present not as allies, but as opposing parties in a tangled web of financial and emotional claims that had become the case's true core. The arguments were dry, focusing on asset division, child support, and the dissolution of their spiritual unions as a corporate entity. It felt anticlimactic, a bureaucratic whimper to end a reality TV saga that had roared for years. Kody's attorney was meticulously arguing for a specific interpretation of their family LLC structure, attempting to shield certain assets acquired during the peak of their TLC fame, when an attorney for Janelle, known for a ruthless and dispassionate precision, requested a brief recess to introduce newly discovered evidence pertinent to the full and fair division of communal assets. What returned to the courtroom was not just a legal team, but a procession carrying the weight of a hidden life. The evidence was a digital avalanche, financial records showing substantial, unexplained withdrawals from the family account over the past 5 years, traceable to a property deed in a remote Arizona town under the name of a trust no one had heard of, long-distance phone records detailing thousands of calls and texts to a single number during times Kody claimed to be on family business, and most damningly, a series of photographs. They showed Kody, unmistakably him, not in the fraught, performative intimacy of his television marriages, but in moments of unguarded, genuine affection, grinning as he pushed a young child, a little boy with his distinctive shock of curly hair, on a swing, holding hands with an unfamiliar woman in a grocery store parking lot, barbecuing in the backyard of a modest, well-kept home, a picture of domestic contentment that stood in stark contrast to the chronic strife he documented with his official families. The silence in the room was a physical thing, thick and suffocating. Then came the witness. The woman, who identified herself as Kara, entered not as a vengeful specter but with a quiet, terrified dignity. She confirmed the impossible. For nearly 7 years, throughout the most turbulent periods of his public marriages, through Christine's despair, Mary's catfishing scandal, and the COVID-19 fractures, Kody Brown had been living a parallel life. She was, for all spiritual and practical purposes, a 5th wife, sealed to him in a private ceremony conducted by a sympathetic, since-deceased spiritual elder. The little boy in the photographs was their son, now 6 years old, whom Kody visited regularly and supported financially from the communal family pot, the very funds he was now in court trying to protect from the women he had publicly claimed were starving his resources. The name of the trust on the property deed was a combination of Kody and Kara's names. This was not a fleeting affair, it was a meticulously hidden, fully realized second family. The shock was not merely moral, it was legal, financial, and profoundly narrative. The entire foundation of Kody's persona, the man who fought the state for the right to love multiple women openly, the patriarch who preached transparency as a tenet of their faith, the victim who lamented the emotional and financial strain of 4 households, crumbled into dust and was revealed as the most grotesque hypocrisy. His entire argument in the lawsuit, that the family's resources were stretched too thin, was nullified by the evidence of his secret diversion of funds. His lamentations about the impossibility of fairly splitting his time were exposed as a cruel joke when the court learned he had been carving out entire weekends for this hidden family while complaining about a single night with one of his legal wives. The sacred covenants he held over Mary's head to keep her tethered to a dead marriage were shown to be meaningless, as he had willingly entered a new one in total secrecy. The reactions in the courtroom were a study in absolute devastation. Robin's famous crying face was frozen in a mask of pure, uncomprehending shock, the tears absent, replaced by a terrifying blankness. She had believed herself